Okay, so still like in the DAX function, like they're unlimited. That's one thing you need to know about like Power BI. You don't need to know everything, you just have to know the fundamental. And when you understand the structure, like even the DAX function, as you start to write them, they will even give the instruction, or you can even read like the documentation behind it. So you just probably go to Google, press the DAX function and read documentation how to write them, or you use AI tools right now. So let's get into what we've been doing. So we have uh this member table, right? So let's assume that based off of this member right here, so we have the risk score. Risk score ranges from 0 to 5. Let's assume that the lowest number is 0.05, 0.5, and the highest number we see here is, let me sort by descending, that's 5, sort by ascending, that's empty. Um so let's say we want to do we want something where, let me sort by descending, what something where if the risk score is greater than is 2.5, right? Want to be categorized as like maybe high risk score and low risk score. Now the question is, would it be a measure or a new column? You need to think about this very well. Where do you want to see the data? I mean, what do you think it's going to be? If you guessed, you can pause this video to think what your answer would be, right? So I want to see, like, if it's like the risk score is 2.5 and above. I want to see if it's I want it to show it's high risk score. If it's like less than 2.5, I want to show low risk score. Pause the video and think about what you think the answer will be. Yeah, you should pause the video. Pause it right now. Okay, let's say you guessed right. If you said it's going to be a new column, you guessed right. And why is that? And in case you did not, I'm going to explain. So for a new column, because we want to see the data here, right? We want to see if it's like above 2.5, we want to see a new column that says high risk, like high risk. Somebody that is like less than, want to see low risk, right? And this goes back to like data cleaning. So we can come here and do the data cleaning and say, okay, those ones that are empty, let's make them 0, so that we have like a categorization for them. Because they're empty, they might not be categorized as anything, and that based off of business question, right? And where it would be a measure is that if I want to see, because I'm trying to see it for each and every person, but I'm going to show you where it's going to be a measure. But let's start off from this. But before then, let us clean up our data. Remember, just a real life scenario, you would at some point have to clean data when you're working on your analysis, because you will start to see things that you never saw in your initial cleaning process. So we're looking for the risk score. So whenever it's null, I just want it to be 0, and place value for null equals to 0. I'm just gonna do that right here. So yeah, so just gonna close and apply. Then that's gonna probably take some second. It's done already. So then go back to my data. So I want to create a new column, right? So it doesn't have to be beside this, but a new column that's going to show me. You can also reorder this column, all of that. So, but we don't need that for analysis to show, like, for example, this age, if I wanted to beside like the age itself, there's a way you could do that. So I'm just going to create a new column. And even though you create a new measure, there are some things that will not work just because it's not making sense. When you start seeing red line, it just tells you that this is a new column or this is a new measure. So I'm going to create a new column. So my new column should be, let's say, risk category, right? So risk category, so it's going to be if, we'll open my bracket. So it's telling me what's the logical test. So if I need to call my column, so that means dimension member, I want to use dimension member risk score. So if risk score is what? If risk score is greater than 2.5, I want greater than 2.5 summation results. What's the result if true? Make sure you write it as high risk. So because it's a text, I have to quote it, or else if it is false, like call it low risk. So that's that. And since I'm done, I'm just going to shift enter, then close my brackets. So right, this is a condition of if dimension score is greater than 2.5, maybe greater or equals to 2.5, greater than or equals to 2.5, pull I risk. If it's greater than or equals to 2.5, pull low risk. So this is the true statement and this is the false statement. And that you see that as a new column. So you could see I have just two categories instead of, like, it just depends on if you don't want to do something like continuous for your analysis. Now, in that same vein of high risk or low risk, right now, let's say the business just want us to know, okay, what's the total count like of those that have, like, high risk score, right? We want to know, okay, all these folks that have high risk score. So if I do a filter right here, right, and the number is showing me like 8,455 right here, right down below here. Like if I want to just create something that shows me what that count is going to look like. So now, because it's like a summation, which I'm going to be seeing in this like Canva here, then that's not going to be a new column. It's going to be a measure. So measure is more like a summation. It's not like you have to see it for each like unique like individual. So I'm just going to create a new column. So, and what's the question? They wanted to know what's the count of those that have like high risk score. So I could just say, so it's going to be a new measure. So new measure is going to be, so my is just, because I want to count high risk. So let me just, I want it to be a measure high risk. Let me just say high risk count. It's a measure. I'm just gonna do, so I want to count rows, right? So you need to know what's rows and columns. So this is the vertical stuff here is the is a column, and the horizontal is a row. So this is the row. This is row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5, and this column 1, column 2, column 3. So we want to count the rows, right? And we can also count, like, we'll count the rows, but we want to count based off of something. So what are we counting the rows on? But because it says, let's say we want to count the rows of all the table, right? It's just, let's say I just want to count the rows of all the tables that I'm just going to write. I'm just going to write, what's the word? Like, say dimension member. So I can only count the rows of all the table, but I'm not going to do that. So let me just close this bracket. But because I'm not counting the rows of everybody. I need to count the rows of those that their risk score is like greater than 2.5. So I need to also like put a filter. So this is like a function under a function just to get a measure, right? So count a filter. So if I want to look at it, so it needs me to put a table name. So it's dimension member. I want to filter what. So and there are various ways to do just one thing, and I'm going to show you also dimension members. I want to filter this, or based off of the, remember what we did, it was the risk score. So I'm not going to use the category, the risk score. So where risk score is greater than greater than equals to 2.5. So now this is not, and let me close out this filter. Your number of opening brackets should be equal to your number of closing brackets. So this is, let me put this right here. So what I'm saying is that I want to count the rows. This is the parent function. I want to count the rows, but I'm, like, instead of counting the rows of all the whole table, like, first of all, filter it that, okay, this is this table where the risk is greater than 2.5. So that is that about that. And that is going to count the rows for me. And you're like, oh, all these functions, where am I going to see them if I really want to see them? If I bring a data card, I'm going to talk about like all of this. If I bring a data card, I would be able to see what that number is. And what that number is going to be. Yeah, so I could see what that number is. But let's not jump right ahead of ourselves. So what other functions? So let's say you don't want to use like what we did earlier. We did if statements for this one, for this new column that we had here, this risk category. And that's one of the things. So we did use if. Something else you could also do is we could use a switch statement, but let's use switch statement on a different question. So let's do that to like plan category. So let's come to plan category, dimension plan. So you just take this out. It's not what I want. I want to see dimension plan. Yeah. So dimension plan. Let's say for example, we wanted to see. So let's say for dimension plan, I want to say, okay, if it's HMO or if it's HMO, right? I want it to be like called managed care. If it's PPI, I want it to be called flexible care, and if it's not, let it just be called others, right? So I'm going to use a switch statement for that, but because I want to see it for each levels, right? HMO should be called managed care, PPA should be called flexible care. If it's not, it should be called others. That's going to be a column already. So that's going to be a new column. So I'm just going to say new column. New column. So what do I want to do? So I'm going to call it maybe say plan category. So plan category. So this time around, instead of using if statement, I want to use a switch statement. So if I say switch, so it says what's my expression? I need to call the value I need to call. So I need to say my table is dimension plan. My dimension plan is what? So my column is plan type, dimension plan type. So plan type, remember most times you always add a comma after anything. So the value on this stuff was like HMO. So if it's HMO, I want you to call it managed care, and you put a comma. Yeah, so and if it is shift and enter, if it is PPO, we can write all of this in one line, but it just doesn't make it easier. Flexible, it doesn't make it like very readable. So else, I'm just going to put others. So I'm just going to put others, and that is that about that. So make sure your number of opening brackets should be same with your closing brackets. So I'm going to close the brackets, and that's that. So it's like a dimension plan. This is it. If it is HMO, managed care, CPO, flexible care, or else put others. So that's it about that one. So let's move on to others. So let's say we want to say for our claims. If I come to the claims table and I wanted to see, so this is claims, make sure I click on claims. So this is the provider. We have like some provider information here. This provider claim as specialty. We have the provider ID. We have like some information about the provider. Yeah, the provider ID. Yeah. If you also come to this table, I mentioned provider, we also have something called provider ID. So the way, and I'm going to talk about relationship between tables eventually in another video. So in both claim table, provider table, we have provider ID. In both and the claims table, we also have provider ID. But right now, this provider, dimension provider, has provider specialty. But this claim table doesn't have the provider specialty. So if I click on specialty, so provider specialty at claim, that is actually there. But let's assume that the provider specialty at claim wasn't there at the time. Let's find something else that we have in this dimension provider that is not in the claims table. So let me say something like let me say the dimension provider. Let's say the provider like zip code, right? The provider zip code. So let's see if we have the zip code. So we don't have the zip code like for the provider in the claims, right? There's a question of, okay, we want to know based of this provider that made these claims, like we want to know what's their own zip code. and that is where we'll use related. So what we want to do is we want to create a new column. We want to create a new column in this claim table. So right here, based off of this provider ID, we want to bring in their zip code, but their zip code is not here. Their zip code is in this provider, dimension provider. So how do we bring that in? Because we want to create a new column so that we don't have to like keep switching tables. That's going to work because we've done some things. I've done some things before this video for it to work, but I'm going to like show you like what I did before, but this is like probably me jumping ahead of myself. So in this like fast claim, so I want to create a new column. So the column is to bring in what I had in my dimension table about the zip code of the provider. I want to bring it into the fast claim. So I'm going to do something like provider zip, and I want to do say related. So related is saying from the dimension provider, so dimension plan, I want to bring the zip code. Okay. So dimension plan, so let me see, a provider ID, I think it's called, let me be sure what it's called. I'm just going to take this away. Be sure I have that zip code. Okay, yeah, I have provider zip code. Let me see if I've done my relationship here. I have. So because of what I've done here, that's going to make this work. Okay, so I haven't made the relationship between this and that, so that's why. So let me do. So the reason why that wasn't showing me was because I haven't managed the relationship. So let me do create a relationship. So I came here to this model view, which I'm going to explain relationship in later on. So I click on manage relationship, new relationship. So from my fact table, I want to relate it to my dimension provider, bespoke provider ID, smart already. So I'm going to say many to one. I'm just going to do both. And don't worry, I'm going to explain what this is in the next video in detail. So that should work. So if I come back here and I say in my claims table, I want to create a new column. And this new column, I want to call it this related dimension plan. So I want to see the what's it called? Is it zip code? Zip. Oh, the zip code, it's a summation. Oh, that's why. It's seen as a summation, not a text. Okay, let's say I want to just use something else. So I'm just going to use region. Now let me call this provider region. So I needed to change that data type because it's seen as a summation. So I will try to make that work. And so for me, what they needed was, and that's the thing about like when you're working on a project. So this zip code is seen as a number, which is supposed to be seen as a text, ideally. So I need to come to my transform, and transform my data, come to provider, and just gonna turn this to a text. So remember, I just have to click on this number, then now I'm gonna choose it as a text. Yeah. So let me say close and apply. And then if I come back to doing related, so right now it's not saying that as a, so I'm just gonna say new measure provider zip equals to related, right? So you sometimes you think you probably know what the solution is, but you probably have to you probably have like 2 or 3 more problems that you need to fix the issue. So related uh okay, related sometimes this thing just be messing up and you just have to close it out to create a new one. So new measure provider zip related. Oh, so it's not, yeah, related. Um so dime. Ideally, when something is working, it would just bring the option for you. Let me say related table. Okay. Then provider. The reason why that wasn't working was because I mistakenly chose creating a new measure instead of a new column. So that's one of those mistakes. So just make sure you choose the right thing. So under the fact tables, I want to provider zip. So related is I want to choose the dimension plan. So now the plan is the plan and the zip code. I think is called zip. So it's a bit. It's one of those things that decide not to work. So let's try to answer another business question, but we're able to get the gist of it. So, if let's say we want to get like the total paid claims by female only, so we want to do that by like we want to so like okay based off of like females, right? We want to say maybe was it, let's say, because we already have a, so if you come here, this is something needs to be advanced. I already have a total claims already. So you can use a measure that is in a place and also like somewhere else to create a new measure. So if I come here, say dimension measure, and say new measure, and I copy something like uh total paid. So my function, my measure that I created was F because F total paid, total claims. So I want to say like based off of the I already calculated the total claims already, right? I wanted to know those that like are paid by female alone. So that's a new measure. Another one I could do is if I want to do claims that are above $10,000. I'm just gonna write that like slowly. So if I want to do okay, what are the claims that are above $10,000? So if I come to the fat claim, so remember you can use filter. So I'm going to say new measure, but right now I want to use calculate. So new measure, I want to say, let's say want to know I cost. So you call it I cost claims. So because I am I want to like it's like a total, it's a like a summation. So this is not like a new column. I'm not trying to say if it's above 10,000, yes or no. Like I'm not trying to do that. I'm saying like give me a summation of claims that are above 10,000. So first few things, one of the things you would do most parts is that you'll be using calculate a lot. So calculate is so you're just gonna put calculate. So calculate what? So I'm just gonna first of all close that bracket. Calculate, but before I do it, calculate, I want to calculate based off of my total claims. So I'm just gonna have total claim because it's a function. I want to calculate my total claims. And that's why like so sometimes you use a function within another function, but instead of just calculating the total claims, apply this filter on it. So this is the function already. I'm saying that make sure you pick from the fact claims. This is the fact claims table. But when you pick the fact claims table, what I want is where the total, the paid amount, not, we've not done that, right? Maybe the allowed amount is we think we used, so we use allowed amount greater than, depends on whatever you're using. greater than, let's say, 1000, and that's it. So all of this, because we don't have like a clear question, so it might look like, oh, what are we trying to do? But let me just do one more and we would be good. So let's do this one more. So we want to count top provider by claim costs. So if you want to do top provider by claim costs, we're trying to do like a top provider by claim cost. So let's do something. We want to do it right here on the dimension provider. So we want to rank, I want to rank the provider, right? So I want to say, based off of this provider that we have here, I want to rank which provider is like number one when it comes to the cost of claims. I want to have that information here, like this is like provider number one, provider number two. So that's going to be um a new column. So a new column, what do I want to do? I say provider rank. So I want to rank all my providers. So now I'm doing, so rank, I'm going to do rank X, not rank EQ. So rank S is one of the best ranks to use. So I want to say rank all of my provider from where? From my dimension table. And that's the thing, you're like, oh, this is a lot already. You don't have to, like I said, provider, let me say maybe based off of the provider name, right? Then use the function of the total paid, total claims, right? So this is like rank them based off of this total paid, but like use the provider name, like so that you order them like provider name. So let's see what that looks like. So we see that here it's kind of like, so this is rank X. So if I do rank alone, it doesn't make, okay, I needed to do rank X actually. So this is because I haven't necessarily like linked everything all together, but that's something else that we can do. There are also things you can do, like maybe top 10 or top something. We can also do what's like the percentage of total costs, but percentage of total costs, let's do something like this. So you get to just do the function. I'm just going to put it under like under claims. So percentage of total cost, so that's going to be a new measure. So percentage of total cost, so here it's going to be F total paid, F total claims, right? So I'm saying here divide this. I'm coming try to put this in order. So like I'm trying to do like numerator denominator kind of thing. So divide, this is the denominator. I want to see what the percentage of the total claim is. So this is supposed to be a new column. So actually, but let's see what it looks like. But we put it as a measure. So that's that about this one. Yeah, there's a couple like measures out there, that's function. You just got to know which one works for you, and that'll be that about this video.